Here with Johnny Hernandez, head coach at Bethune-Cookman since 2018, but started the program at ASA College in Miami, but was the head coach at tradition-rich Hialeah High School for a long time. So, Johnny, thanks for jumping on with me.
Appreciate it, Ryan. Thank you for having me on.
Because this is a crazy time for you guys, so I do appreciate you carving out some time to jump on with me.
No, absolutely. Anytime, I can kind of give back or talk about our program. I think that it's great, and I appreciate everything you do and the ABCA does for all of its members.
Did you know you were going to get into coaching when you were playing?
I think I did. Going back to the high school days, being a lefty, that was, 83, 85, knew that professional baseball wasn't going to be the avenue, for me for a career. But I got to thank my high school coaches, at the time, Coach Rich Bilski, Hector Torres, Carlos Marti, those guys instilled, what I wanted to become. And I was a sponge, asked a lot of questions. And that was something that kind of drew me to the game. And, what better way than, make a living than coaching baseball and impacting young men. So I knew early on this is something that I wanted to do.
Did they nudge you a little bit, say, hey, this might be something you should look into because we feel like you're going to be a good coach?
I think after, there was a time where I was still in college. And then after my second year, playing at college at Florida Memorial, my girlfriend at the time, who's my wife now of 18 years, we had our first daughter. So I had to kind of start, young. So let go baseball, playing, and, just started working in the private sector. And then after like a year or two, I was done with it. I was working for DHL, managing their inbound, outbound cargo stuff down in Miami. And it just got to a point where I wanted to get back into the game. So kind of asked them for their advice, and, they thought it'd be a great opportunity to get in, and everything worked out, so, I think going back to that time, they were very crucial, in me getting into coaching as far as mentorship and, asking them questions about it.
How was that conversation with your wife? I think we've all been through that early on in our path where you may not make a ton of money in the beginning, but how was that conversation with your wife?
In the beginning, it's funny because our daughter was about to be born, and I jumped into an opportunity coaching at a high school with one of my buddies, was playing there at the time back in 2004, and there was no money. I just told her, hey, this is just kind of a hobby. I want to see if I want to get into it. And sure enough, the second summer after, a really good friend of mine who was coaching at the time at Miami Springs Senior High School, Phil Weiser, he approached me with another opportunity to head up the freshman team, at Miami Springs High School down in Miami Springs, Florida. And he told me the pay was $600. And I remember going to my wife and telling her, hey, we can make extra money at $600 for, this season. What do you think? She's like, yeah, we need the money. So at that point, right, when you're 20, 21 years old, you've got a daughter and now a wife, you're trying to look for different avenues of income. But man, just fell in love with it, with the organizational process to it, just everything that comes with impacting, young guys. And for me, it just even wasn't about the money. It was just being out there and impacting guys and, being able to give back to our community as well down in Hialeah, Florida.
Well, and you're better off starting earlier because you don't know what you don't know in the beginning. If you're not making a ton of money anyway, you don't know what you don't know. So you're better off starting earlier with not making any money.
100%, and I think that was, it was good because I think it did allow me to have my own full-time job that I was working, and the schedule was perfect. I mean, I remember working not only at DHL, but at Miami Children's Hospital in the psych unit, while I was coaching at Coral Gables High School, and even having an opportunity to go back to my alma mater at Hialeah High School, where there's a rich tradition of baseball, being able to maneuver some of the jobs I was doing because I wasn't a teacher. So I was just a part-time coach. And for me at that point, it wasn't even about the money. It was just about what can I do to get these, young student athletes to have an opportunity to go play college, just kind of set them up for life as well.
What do you attribute to Hialeah being so good?
Man, the coaches that we had, again, that Coach Bilski, Hector Aguila and Coach Marti, man, those guys knew what it was to be a Hialeah T-bred, even though they, besides Coach, Aguila, Coach Bilski didn't play at Hialeah, or Coach Marti, he was over at Pace High School. So, just being able to bring that community, man. And I remember playing when we were younger in Hialeah Core League and Hialeah Athletic Association, HAA. That was all we did. There wasn't travel ball. We had a long season, a short season. And I think that they did a pretty good job of bringing us all together. And I think that's something that's lost right now. And this is no disrespect to travel ball at all. but we don't have, the community. I mean, our rec league back in Hialeah was really competitive, just like it was all over South Florida. And we don't have that anymore. So I think attributed to the success is actually all of us being out there playing and not worrying about, chasing summer rings or plaques or banners. It was just kind of working and nonstop working. And I think that's attributed to the success that the baseball program we had over at Hialeah and just bringing in close-knit community to play baseball. And that's kind of all we knew, at that time, especially growing up.
When did you get that opportunity then to take over the program?
That was after the spring of 2009. The head coach at that time was our pitching coach at Hialeah, Coach Marti. And, I was coaching at Coral Gables Senior High School. And he just approached me with an opportunity like, hey, I think you'd be a great fit, to come out here and, head up the alma mater. And it was like no questions asked. Like, what do I got to do? Where do I sign? And I was able to have that opportunity with, Coach Shane Fulton and Ozzie Herrera, who was a Hialeah High alumnus. And, we did some great things there. And that's something that again, everywhere I go, at the end of the day, I represent our hometown, our community in Hialeah, Florida.
So then what prompted the switch then going from high school to college?
Like every young high school coach, right? You think that you can coach in the SEC, right? You think you know it all. But there was always an interest for me to be able to jump into the college sector. That's, I think, every high school, coach's, I guess, dream. At least that's what it was for me. This is something that I wanted to do. And, I was at the right place at the right time. At that point, I was selling tickets for a buddy of mine for the Marlins, who worked in the front office, just kind of helping him, grow his network in the city of Hialeah. And I was actually set to sell some tickets to, a friend of ours who was a doctor. And that's where the whole correlation begins of me getting an opportunity at ASA where, hey, this brand new school is opening up. There's definitely an opportunity for them to bring in a young coach who has ties within the local community. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Just another challenge is something to, kind of head start the career. And I was very fortunate to land that, opportunity at ASA College. And that's something that I'm not here without those experiences and those people that have paved the way for myself to get to this point.
For somebody that has to start a program from scratch, what would you tell them?
There's no substitute for hard work. At the end of the day, it was a small program branch out of New York, ASA College. And, we brought in about 30, brand new student athletes just to head up the program. You're getting to a point where not anybody knows who you are. So you have to make phone calls, you have to send emails, you have to be able to go out and recruit not only the players, but the parents and even some of the high school coaches. I was in a good position because of the 6-7 years that, 10 years that I coached high school baseball with the contacts and the connections that I had where people knew what I was about as a person, and it was tough. You get told no more than you get told yes. But for me, for someone that's going to start a program again, it's just that work ethic, the dedication, and just kind of trusting the process. And it's cliche, but you're not going to win a College World Series in year one. We understand that it's all a process. You have to put the name out there and it's tough, but at the end of the day, you just got to grind it out and just kind of do what you need to do to put yourself in a position to impact, the community and do what you need to do.
Seems like down in that area, you have to know people to be able to recruit down in that South Florida area, which helps you a lot because you're from that area.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that was the biggest thing, for myself when I took on the opportunity at ASA, that I knew it's something that we would be able to build because of the contacts and the connections that we have, with all the local high school coaches. And you have to also find your niche as to what type of player you're going to be able to bring in, right? With no facilities, in the smack middle of a shopping mall, it's not always the best player. It's a right fit, for not only the college, but for the program. So, a lot of hard-nosed kids down in South Florida, not that there's none all over the country, but that's all I knew at that point. And that's what we went after. And we went after guys also that were cut from other, junior college programs or, let go at the end of the fall. And that's where, we kind of turned that program, the next step to it, and winning baseball games is great. But at the end of the day, just being able to spend time with all those guys and road warriors, no home games, so you definitely need the right type of person to be able to fit that mold for what we went through at ASA.
Do you feel like starting on the high school side helped you relate to those players a little bit more because it's a little bit closer to the high school age range?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that experience too kind of falls into where I'm at today, where I'm able to still relate to, the high school coaches and some of the junior college coaches, excuse me, because of the experience that I've been able to go through where, coached high school for a while, coached JC for a little bit, and then now here at the Division I level, all those experience all tie in to each other. And I think being able to coach high school while, getting that opportunity at ASA definitely, allowed me to also deal with the kids and, do what we needed to do at that program.
You were honored with the Black College Nines Coach of the Year award this spring.
Yeah, it's something that, I wasn't really, looking to see if I got it or not. It just so happened where a buddy of mine called me congratulating me, and I had no idea what was going on. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's not, my award alone. That's attributed to the not only the assistant coaches that I work alongside with. They do a phenomenal job, getting everything rolling for our program. The administrative support that we do have here at Bethune-Cookman, which, it's been awesome. But also the work that the student athletes buying into our vision of what we're doing at our program. So, that's just a team award, even though, it says Johnny Hernandez on it. That's definitely a team award with everyone that surrounds, we surround our program with.
Did you have to make any adjustments when you got to Bethune? Because I know everybody, and that's why I asked, because you're on the high school side, JC side. I think everybody kind of has this Division I thing, and that's why I asked that question, just to see if there was any adjustments you felt like you needed to make.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying to you if I told you that there was no adjustments and I had everything figured out. Absolutely not. That was a whirlwind of a summer, making the transition from junior college to now becoming a Division I head coach. But there is transition along with it, now coming from the JC side of things to the Division I side, just the resources that you're able to have, to assist you in the process. And I think the rules part of it also.
Compliance is, I think that's what I always tell people. It's paperwork and compliance is the only difference.
Yeah, and that was where, I'm coming from JUCO where school starts and we're getting ready to roll to have 15 games or 20 games in the fall season. So wait a second, we have 8-hour weeks and then we have team practice. So that was an adjustment on its own. But the transition that made it helpful for me was the two assistants that I had when I got on board. Coach Keith Zuniga, who's currently the pitching coach at the University of Hawaii, and, Coach Jose Carballo, who right now is, director of recruiting over at Missouri. Those guys really assisted me in that transitional process. And I think that without them, then, I probably would have, gone somewhere else, but, they did everything they needed to do to kind of keep me in check and just kind of keep me in line. Like, hey, these are the rules. This is what we have to do. And, just like for any regular freshman that's coming into college from high school, it does speed up on you a little bit, and that was just the speed of the game. And I had that transition from high school to junior college, and then now from junior college to the Division I level when I first started out. So, it was an adjustment all in its own. And, I think I got a good grip of it right now, 6 years under my belt, but there's always, things that you want to learn and you are learning. And that's why I appreciate everything that you guys do in the ABCA.
What are your processes for hiring new hires then? As far as when you're going through, because I get a lot of people reaching out, so that's why I ask. It's when you're looking to hire somebody new, what's kind of your process to hire somebody?
I've been able to do it quite, some time here at Bethune, and we have the assistant coach turnover, but it's not because we're firing people. It's because they're doing such a great job. And for me as a head coach, I think that I should not be a roadblock for any assistant, because be lying to you if no assistant coach wants to be a head coach. Absolutely. And that's something that us at head coaches, not only are we developing, the players and the student athletes, but I think that we do have a responsibility developing assistant coaches to become head coaches, because we were all assistant coaches at one point, and that's the goal. So I think that there's a lot to go into it just based on, what the position calls for. But, just guys that are loyal, guys that have, work ethic, guys that are dedicated to not only developing the program, but have the dedication to develop, young student athletes and young men and assist them with the skills of life. And, it's all a relationship business at the end of the day. If I get emails about, job applications or people that wanting to apply for jobs, and I go into my contact Rolodex, and just, hey, what can you tell me about the person side of, the personable side of things? Like, he could be a great baseball coach, but if he doesn't know how to connect, with, the student athletes, then it's not going to be a fit for us.
What have been your impressions of the SWAC?
Really good conference. I can tell you that I spent 1 year in the MEAC in 2019, and then, COVID in 21, our university opted out of athletics. So we were thrown right into the SWAC the spring of 2022. I think that, the head coaches and the assistant coaches that work alongside with them and with the student athletes that we do have, I think the SWAC is a really good conference. Alone this year, if you look at what, Southern was able to, do to LSU, they won that game. Obviously, Alabama State beat Auburn. And then we had a couple of midweek wins as well, highlighted by the win at the University of Miami. I think it's going to continue to grow. And I think that every head coach that's leading the teams in the SWAC, they're positioning themselves to continue to get better each and every year. And I'm very proud of the efforts of all the coaches all around to be able to continue to push the needle a little bit further with SWAC baseball as a whole.
It just seems like there's a lot of pride with the coaches in the SWAC for the conference.
Absolutely. It's a situation where we're all friends, but, when we see each other on a weekend series, everyone's trying to beat each other. And that's fine, but for us, it's, how can we, come up with different ways to continue to push the conference forward on a national scale? Just, last year, here at our program, we had a guy get drafted in Nolan Santos in the 7th round, and our closer signed as a free agent, and other schools had opportunities for players to get signed. And this year, you see the 8th round, Alabama State, had a player get drafted. So I think we're heading in the right direction. There's a ton of pride, for us in the SWAC conference to continue to push this thing a little bit forward and continue to kind of push the needle, so to speak.
Y'all play a really challenging non-conference midweek schedule. Is that, geographically, you're in a pretty good spot to get some really good schools, but do you do that by design as well?
Yeah. Obviously being centrally located here in Florida, it gives us an opportunity to play the teams that we play. So we very rarely have to leave the state of Florida to play, right? I think administration would like that on a budget standpoint. But I think it is by design also. If you look at where Bethune-Cookman traditionally has been when they've had the opportunity to win a conference championship, it's going to be 3 regional sites. It's going to be Miami, Florida, Florida State. So, traditionally that's where it's been. And I can't foresee a situation where Bethune goes outside of the state of Florida, depending how the other big 3 do. So we have to put our players in that position possible as many times as we can. And I think the schedule does a really good job of recruiting itself, believe it or not. We went to LSU a couple of years ago for a weekend series, went to South Carolina. But I think if we're able to put our players in that position as many times as possible, that's going to help us get ready for a really tough SWAC conference, baseball tournament. So it's by design, but it also helps, geographically where we're located as well. We're only, a bus ride away, 2 or 3 hours the most from everybody else.
What did working for USA Baseball do for your career?
Man, it did a lot. I can remember when I first got the call, I was coaching high school and I started as a scorekeeper back in the championships in Jupiter and West Palm. And then just that progression from scorekeeper to being on the task force to working NTIS, then NTDP, and then now the last couple of years working with the national teams. And this past 23 summer, having an opportunity that they gave me with the USA Collegiate National Team, it definitely opened my eyes to, a lot of great people, that I've been able to come across, but I definitely do think, having that USA Baseball uniform, you wear it across your chest, it means a lot, at whatever capacity. And that's how I took it. When I was scorekeeping, when there was no iPads, you had to write it down with a pencil. Took pride in that, then that led to an opportunity on the task force. But, what it means to my career, I don't think that I'm in this position without USA Baseball. And the support that I've had with, several of my colleagues that I've been able to come across. Still to this day that we still have friendships and relationships with.
Being on the high school side, then work with a task force, do you feel like that helped you with some evaluation of players and what it's supposed
Absolutely.
to look like?
100%.
Hialeah has great players, had so many good drafts, so you're around it there, but you see more kids on a national basis there too with USA.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the things where, the first, couple of times where you're scouting, you don't want to say the wrong thing, right? You want to make sure you say the right thing, but you ask questions. We have guys like Daryl Don and Butch Chafin and, some of those guys that we were around, they let you ask questions and you're going to be okay. Nothing's wrong. And one thing that it did taught me too during that point is to be able to fight for your guy. If this is the guy that you really think is good enough to represent the red, white, and blue, then go ahead and fight for your guy. And I kind of took that with me when I recruit. It's like, if this is a guy that I think is going to, help us out, then you know what, fight for your guy. It doesn't matter if it's a Power 5 school or a JUCO or whatever, just throw your shot. You never know. And privy to a lot on the evaluation side of things. And again, accredited to the people that I've come across with USA Baseball to assist me in that process as well.
And you're working individually with guys too in skill sessions too. You can see who's coachable, who's not coachable, and that goes into that piece too for them, right?
100%, and that's one of the big things for us is again, it's not about the best player, it's about the right fit. It's about the character, the makeup. It's, is this guy, it's very easy to be a good teammate when you're 4 for 4, but when you're 0 for 4 and the strike zone is yay big, how are you going to react and stuff like that. So being able to be put in a setting with those guys really allows you to see what the personality is going to be and does it fit that mold. Because, as you know, when the USA baseball team goes to, international competition, it's the band of brothers against everybody else. Nobody wants USA baseball to do well. So you have to be able that you get the right fit for the program, but also the right mentality and the right makeup and character.
You've made really good career choices. Was that betting on yourself?
Absolutely. Again, like for someone that did not play Division I baseball, for someone that did not play professional baseball, just the one thing, the work ethic, the dedication, and just kind of betting on yourself, right? It's about having that chip on their shoulder and not losing that. I did a talk at a high school convention here in Florida. I want to say it was last year or a year and a half ago. And my topic was I am you. So how I tied everything in is I represent the high school coaches, I represent the junior college coaches because I am you. I was in that position, and everything I've done it to a situation where I want to be the best at it, and nothing was going to stop me from getting to where I needed to get to. And, again, without that mindset, that drive comes from the city of Hialeah. And the Cuban population that we do have, the tight-knit Latin community that we have down in South Florida, my parents came from Cuba, and they didn't have anything. And they would work 2 or 3 jobs just to, do what they needed to do. And, my grandmother taking care of us and just kind of seeing that really fueled me to be put in a situation like if they can do it, then, why not myself with the sacrifices that, my family has made for myself to get to this point. And this doesn't happen also without the support of my wife, Oli, that we've been together for 18 years and our 2 children. Again, it takes a special, person to be with a baseball coach, and my wife's definitely special.
How long did it take you to develop your coaching voice, your coaching style? Or have you always been the same, or did it take you a little bit to develop it?
No, it took a little bit. I think when, as an assistant, on the high school side of things, you start learning from different coaches that you've been around, even, when I played high school. And then when I got to JUCO, it was kind of thrown into that. I think that the only thing in my career, and I talk to this to my closest friends, is I wish I would have been an assistant at the college setting before jumping into the head coaching role at a junior college. The reason why I say that is because there's so many things that I think that I could have learned that I would have done differently, right? And it was kind of more, hey, you're doing this on the fly.
Trial by fire.
So, yeah, 100%. So looking up the resources, I mean, all the videos from ABCA clinics, conventions back then, just trying to take bits and pieces of everybody. And then I was one when I was younger, well, if it works for them, it's going to work for us. And it took me some time to realize like not everything is going to work for every single program because the players are different, the personalities are different. So take some stuff that are going to work within your program and with what your philosophies are. And me being a pitching guy, I always thought we're going to be pitching and defense, heavy. Don't worry about the offense, right? You can't slug your way to a championship. So I've come to understand that you do need some guys on the offensive side, but as far as like the coaching style, the communication piece, philosophy, all that has definitely evolved within the last, I want to say 10 to 13 years.
Are you still heavily involved with the pitching?
No. So again, I think as a head coach, right, we hire assistant coaches to do their jobs. I don't believe in micromanaging. Coach Sanchez does a phenomenal job with our pitching staff here at Bethune-Cookman, and he was here at Bethune when they went on a crazy run when they won 10, 11 conference championships in the MEAC, in a row. So, having a guy like that I'm able to lean on as well, with his expertise and, his ability to develop the pitchers, I kind of let him do his thing, and I can't say anything else. I mean, statistically speaking, the last 3 years, we've been at the top, if not the best pitching staff in our conference. So he's doing a really good job. And even before that, with Coach Keith Zuniga, who's at Hawaii, we just hit it off. And as a pitching guy, being a head coach, you tend to kind of overshadow or want to make sure that everything's going right. But those two guys have done a really good job on the pitching side.
That's the hardest job at the Division I level is pitching. That's the hardest job for the assistant is pitching.
100%. We just finished up our fall calendar, and everything. Now
they do great. Like I tell people that I'm like, hey, you can have a really long career being a pitching coach at the Division I level, but you could have a really short career too.
100%. And knock on wood again, like with Coach Zuniga and with Coach Sanchez, my 6 years here. I mean, they both have done a phenomenal job with not only taking care of the arms, developing the arms, and then putting together plans, for our guys to do what they need to do. And again, coming into it at first, I was, as a pitching guy, you're kind of wary of who you bring in, but, we hit it off. And, when I had the opportunity to hire Coach Sanchez, it was a no-brainer. Somebody with experience, somebody that had experience coaching in the SWAC, somebody that had experience developing arms and knowing what it takes to take the program to the next level. He's done wonders, for our program the last 3 years that, we've been working together.
Well, and that allows you to manage every player on the team then.
It really does. It frees up, a lot of my time, and Coach Cartaya, who we brought in from FIU, who he handles the infielders and the hitting. And then Coach Allen, who we brought in this past spring, who handles our catchers, they do a really good job of getting this stuff done, which allows me to be able to manage, everything. So, again, without them, we don't have the success that our program has had the last couple of years, to be honest with you.
Have you made any adjustments with how you're handling players since you started?
Yeah. At first, being on the younger side, right, you think it's cool and it's great, but there's also kind of that boundary, right? Hey, I'm head coach, you're the player, right? But I think that the relationship piece is huge. I think as with every relationship, it falls on three things. And this is one of our three core values that we have with our program. It's communication, it's, trust, and it's transparency. And we tell kids on the recruiting side all the time that we have an open door policy. Like, it's not just about, right, the X's and O's, ground balls, BP fly balls. Like, we're going to want to know what's going on in your day-to-day life, because again, these are 18 to 22-year-old dudes, probably leaving home for the first time. And the kids that we usually get are first generation, students, trying to acquire a college education. So instead of jumping the gun and, seeing a kid kind of have a bad attitude with what's going on, well, coach, I had an argument with my girlfriend, or, hey, coach, this was going on back home with my family. So we have that communication piece with, our student athletes. Then once you have communication, you can have, you start building trust. Every one of our players has 150% of our trust. Is our job as coaches, and mentors to be able to not only earn the trust of our student athletes, but to keep that trust. And then once you start building on communication trust, then you fall back on transparency. Not going to sugarcoat anything, but at the same time, not put them in a situation where they feel embarrassed in front of their peers. So, those three things have definitely evolved also within the way how I handle, the student athletes that I've come in contact with.
You meet with them every week? You meet with your players individually?
We try to, yeah. For us, they know that our door is always open, so we have some of our student athletes, like our players, they know what time we get in the office, and they're just kind of hanging out in the parking lot waiting for us to get in, or, they just pop in. So, we meet with them as much as possible. We talk to them as much as possible, because at the end of the day, it's about setting them up for life. These guys are all going to be, husbands and, fathers and, the sole provider of their household. So we have to be able to allow them to get the skills to be able to win in the game of life. And one thing that I tell our players all the time, and we have an 11-year-old son, his name's Jake. Bring him by the ballpark, and he's been coming to the ballpark since we moved here, 6 years ago. So he finds a way to latch himself to some of the players, and he'll hang out in the locker room and he'll be part of practice. But I think it's important for our players to see that, because then they see, Johnny, the dad, as opposed to, Coach Hernandez, the head coach. And, not only the impact that these players are having with my son, but I see the impact too that he's having on them. Where if he doesn't show up one day, I mean, they get on him the next day he shows up. So at the end of the day, when they know, hey, I got to go pick up Jake at school, I'll be right back. Again, they need to see that dad aspect of what we do as well.
Yeah, I have former players. When I talk to them, they don't ask how I'm doing. They ask how my kids are doing.
100%. I get that too. Like, hey, how's Jake doing? I'm like, okay, all right, sounds good, man. Hey, what's going on? Hey, coach, how's Jake? All right. But no, it's great. Again, like I think that, we have a unique opportunity, right? That I didn't have. I didn't grow up, in a college ballpark or anything like that. And just being able to provide that opportunity for my son is second to none.
You guys start school fairly quickly here. Where will you start? Will you meet with them for a while before you get on-field stuff going, or how soon will on-field stuff start for you once you get going?
Yeah, that's usually the plan. Excuse me. They'll get here August 9th, check in, do what they need to do on the administrative side of things with the university, and then we'll have our meetings probably the week after. What I've usually done in the past is I try and give our guys the first week of school, which starts August 19th, just to give them a whole week of just kind of going through school with no worry about baseball, practice, none of that. So we'll probably start individuals the week of August 26th. And then being in Florida, the weather is conducive for us to kind of back up our team practice phase till, maybe the first or second week of October. So it gives us, a really good 5 to 6 weeks of player development and doing the individuals and skill work with the guys to, be able to be ready for October instead of, having to deal with winter storms or, any of the cold weather where we have to be in a bubble. I mean, again, we're fortunate enough to be here in Florida where, the weather is good and then we'll get some rain. But it definitely does help, being at Jackie Robinson Ballpark, home of the Cincinnati Reds, A affiliate team, the Daytona Tortuga, where that's all, the field is all turf. So again, like we don't have to worry about banging a practice because of rain. And we're fortunate again to have that relationship with the Cincinnati Reds and with the Daytona Tortugas, which allows us to be able to practice.
We play outside competition in the fall. Will you play somebody else?
Yeah, we do. Last year we played Eastern Florida State College, and then we also played against the University of North Florida. This year we're going to play against Miami-Dade College on a Saturday in November, and then we're working on a scheduled opponent for the rest of the fall.
I always like to play in the junior colleges in the fall.
I think it's huge,
especially for schools that recruit junior college players. Like I think it's twofold. I think it gives you an opportunity to get out there and play, but it also gives you an opportunity to see junior college players play against Division I players.
100%. And that's the one thing that I've kind of done is try and schedule, a junior college opponent because it does give us the ability to recruit. It allows the JUCO guys to see, wow, this is where you play. The stadium is beautiful. Everything. Yeah, like just give it a shot. And then it lets us see and identify, and evaluate the talent throughout, whether it's 14 innings or 15 innings. And, at that point, when our open recruiting period starts in September, we're hitting up the JUCO events, anyways. We recruit a lot of the junior college, baseball guys, and that's kind of something we've been doing the last couple of years. So, it all ties in, but it definitely gives them an opportunity to check out our campus and, do what they need to do.
Yeah, it seems like you have a good mix of junior college and high school players on the roster.
Yeah, in 2021, when our administration decided to opt out of athletics for that season, I went back to the drawing board. I remember that I went to my office. We had a bunch of high school names, literally on the board, and I wiped it all clean. And I said, we're going to go JUCO heavy because we have to stabilize our program. And that's what that 22 season was all about. It was about stabilizing the program after 2 years of not playing and being a junior college coach. When I was at ASA, I believe in the JUCO process. Like, I think that at that point we couldn't wait. As crazy as it sounds, like we just couldn't put freshmen to play against, 23, 24-year-old guys. I mean, that's just the landscape of college baseball where it was back then and where it still is. So, we made it a point to recruit heavy on the JC side. And that's what we did. In 22, we did that. And the recruiting cycle of 23, we're going to continue to do that, especially with the type of schedule that we do play. We're constantly going up against, the best teams that Florida has to offer. And we have to be able to put ourselves in a situation to compete if we want to continue to evolve this program. So it's a good blend. Not necessarily would we hit the transfer portal, but it's really just JC guys that we go after.
And as much as some of the other schools are hitting the transfer portal, there's really good JC players sitting out there looking for schools.
100%, and that's the one thing, where, everyone's recruiting philosophy is different. If everyone's fighting for the transfer portal kid, I'd rather go take the JUCO guy that has 100, 150 at-bats under the belt, or, 70, 80 innings under their belt, that they're battle tested also. They're just playing junior college baseball. And then there's a lot of really good junior college baseball programs across the country, that can definitely beat some Division I programs. That's just what it is. So, we find ourselves the opportunities to not stay stuck in the state of Florida. We go Georgia, we've gone out west before, we've gone to the Midwest, just wherever the best available player that's going to fit our system and what our needs are. And if they check the boxes, then we're going to go ahead and recruit those guys.
How actively involved are you with the recruiting process?
A lot. Again, it's a situation where, we all work together, with it. I don't handcuff our assistant coaches. If they see a player and everything checks off, they know kind of what we expect for them to be with our program and meeting the standard day in and day out. If everything checks off, then go after, our guys, that's what we call it. So we're all actively working together with it. When we have visits, obviously I'm here and we all coordinate with each other. And, but for me, I think that's something that I love to do. I enjoy the recruiting process, to be able to meet the players, meet the families, and, be able to go up against some other schools to see if we get the commitment. Like, just that driving force that continues to propel the program moving forward, where we're not going to, just tell ourselves, well, there's a couple of schools on we're not going to, even offer this guy. Absolutely not. Like, go out, let's shoot our shot. Let's do what we need to do. Cause you never know, fight for your guy. So actively in the recruiting process, but again, we all work together, and I don't believe in handcuffing our assistant coaches. And, if they like a player and they check the boxes, well, then, let's get after it.
How gratifying is it for you to be able to give minorities opportunities in an HBCU school?
Really good. I think that's important, for us. And that's something that we're changing too on the recruiting side of things, to give minorities an opportunity to do what they need to do. I know the participation level in the big leagues is not where it needs to be. But if you look at the draft the last couple of days, there's been a lot of minority kids that have been drafted, So, the fact that the talent is there is just, giving kids opportunities, and I think that Major League Baseball with the Breakthrough Series, Hank Aaron Invitational, some of the stuff that they're doing down there with MLB Develops, it's giving kids an opportunity. I think the other thing too is, if the minority kids, the better ball players, if they give HBCUs an opportunity also to recruit them, I think that's going to change the game a little bit more, So it's gratifying, especially me being a minority, Hispanic background, giving kids opportunities to be able to push this thing forward.
Do you have to do much fundraising?
Yes and no. It just kind of depends.
Like for me that Bethune's pretty well funded.
Yeah, we are, and again, that's because of the administrative support, that we do have, without the support of our athletic director, Reggie Theus, his support staff with, George Bryant and Scott Summers and, our president, without them, this doesn't work, so, we'll do some fundraising here and there, but, in a really good position, with our university, to be able to ask for things within reason that we'll be able to, to acquire to continue to evolve our baseball program here.
When you get into the season, then how do you know how to adjust practice planning, or is it pretty set for you throughout the year as far as how practice goes, or do you adjust on the fly as needed?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? I think in the beginning, once the kids get back from, winter break, we go through that 8-hour window again, the individual side of things, just making sure, the biggest thing is making sure the arms are healthy and ready to go. And then once we're able to have, team practice, then, we know it's going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday for the first 3 weeks before opening day, and then try and mix in a midweek scrimmage if possible. And then just as the season progresses, then we go on the fly based on what are some areas that we have to improve on? What are some areas that we're really good at, and what are some areas that we need to work on? I think that, this year we changed it up a little bit as far as like kind of how we handled our practices. And it worked well. I think the results were there, and, it's going to get better because now we bring back, a plethora of our returners that are coming back. So that's always good. So I think in the beginning, it's pretty much standard of what we do. But as we get through the season, we also have to take into account how much travel, we're going to be doing, especially in the SWAC, and just kind of easing off on the guys as opposed to just going, metal, just gas pedal, where we have to be able to take a step back. And that's one of the things that, I've learned through my career, where when I was younger, it was like, we're going to practice every day, 3-4 hours. This is what we're going to do. And then just being able to scale back and understand that, rest, nutrition, for those guys is much more important, right, than just hitting BP and, just doing what you need to do. But I think that we go on the fly as the season, kind of carries itself.
I think your conference season is challenging too, because you play everybody twice, because it's a double round robin. So
it's a double round robin
one time, but then you're going to see them again. So it's who can make adjustments that second go around.
Yeah, and this is where we have so much pride in what we want to do to move the conference forward. So this is going to be the first year that we're getting away from the double round robin.
Love it.
So we're going to play everybody, one time through. And, since we do have 12 teams, what we're going to do is rotating every year. You're going to miss somebody. So we'll have 30 conference games. And I think that that's something that is much needed to get away from the double, round robin that you mentioned earlier, because again, it's going to give us an opportunity to have a SWAC regular season champ, and then whoever the SWAC tournament champion would be, then so be it. But I think that what we're trying to do to push this program forward, or the conference forward, is to see how can we have an at-large bid outside of a conference tournament champion. And it's tough. It's not easy. But those are conversations that we're having as a coaching staff. And I think this is just one step in the right direction for our conference, moving forward in that situation.
Yeah, because I've had multiple conversations with other people in other conferences. Like, okay, if this is what the best conferences are doing, whether it's a regular season or their tournament format, you should probably try to emulate that a little bit. I get it with ADs and presidents sometimes from a financial standpoint, but I think people get in their way from a conference standpoint of, okay, this is what the better ones are doing. The SEC and the ACC went to more teams way before, and for conference tournament way before anybody else did, and it's helped them. I think it also helps save jobs too. Just from the outside looking in with athletic directors, I think it saves jobs if you can get more teams into conference tournaments.
Yeah, 100%. And, right now we have 8 teams going into the SWAC tournament, the conference tournament, but I think that there's going to be talks of us maybe expanding that. Now, what that looks like, it's still TBD. But I think if you look at the SEC model and what they do, if we decide to have all 12 teams, get into the conference tournament, then, maybe the bottom 4 have a one-day playoff or one-game playoff, and then you go double elimination format the rest of the way. So those are conversations that are being had right now. I don't think that that's something that's going to take place this next year, but it's definitely some topic of conversation, especially with our SWAC commissioner, wanting to have the ability of more teams expanded into the not only conference baseball tournament, but in basketball, they just expanded it as well. And I think it's going to go across the board. So
love it.
The one thing that we're all ecstatic about is the fact that we're going to be able to play everybody. And you're exposing the student athletes to different pockets of the country, different universities, the rich tradition of some of these programs, and, being able to have that historical significance as well. It hasn't been done, and we're going to do it. And, I think that, I want to say we're all pumped up for it. I know I am, in the SWAC conference, but that's again attributed to the work that the, head coaches and the support from administration is key to make this happen.
Do you take time after the spring to evaluate the season at all before you get ready for the fall?
I think I take about 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, just because I have to give myself, a breather as well. I won't even watch the conference tournament, for 2 or 3 weeks just to see kind of what went wrong and what we got to fix and what we got to correct and to get us to that point of, again, having an opportunity to win a conference championship. But,
once that kind of, you guys were right there this year.
Yeah. We lost to a really good Jackson State team. And that's the thing about the SWAC, especially with the format that we had. I mean, you had a number 4 seed that went to the championship, game against Grambling University, who was a 2 seed. So not always the 1 seed is going to win it. But we're right there, we're on the cusp of it. And, I give myself, about 2 or 3 weeks, just to kind of, get to a better place, so to speak, to be able to see, okay, evaluate the season and, what went wrong here and maybe some things that we need to address in the fall to be able to, not experience, I guess, some of the losses, right, that we had.
Do you guys run many summer camps?
We don't, because we do share the facility with the Daytona Tortugas. It has to fall in line with the minor league schedule as well. So if there's opportunities for us to do any camps, youth camps and stuff like that, we'll try and do it. But if it doesn't fall in line with the schedule, if the pro team's at home for a week or 2 weeks, and then we got to go out recruiting, then I mean that's going to take.
It's actually better, by the way.
Presidents.
It's better. It's better than we don't have to run camps in the summertime. Now, it hurts financially a little bit because it's a way to get some more money, but the summer camp grind along with the recruiting grind is a different deal.
Yeah, I mean, we've tried to experiment with, trying to do youth camps, and, the prospect camps will do well, that we'll do one, in the middle of the fall, and then we'll try and do one, right before the high school season starts, in like a winter camp. But, at the end of the day, the summer camps, man, like if it doesn't fall in line with the schedule of the pro team, then, unfortunately we won't be able to do that. But that's something that we're trying to build up slowly but surely, to be able to provide, that opportunity also for the youth around Volusia County.
Do you have a fail forward moment? You have something you thought was going to sidetrack you, but looking back now, it helped you move forward? Could be professionally, could be personally.
I think the move to ASA, to be honest with you, because I didn't know what I was going to get myself into, and when I first went on that visit and I saw that we were in between a Burlington Coat factory and a Planet Fitness, I was like, oh man, is this really going to work out? Like, what are we doing here? It was a 2-story building. I was like, there's no way that this is going to work out. And sure enough, I had 5 really good years there. Ken Wilcox was the athletic director there. He extended an opportunity when nobody else was giving me an opportunity. So I'm forever indebted for him, allowing me to be able to do what I needed to do. And it was a blank canvas, and that's the one thing that I enjoyed. It was a blank canvas, and I was able to make it out, to be whatever it was. And throughout that span, just learning the administrative side of baseball. And that's what I enjoy doing, from scholarships to academic review, right? As a JUCO coach, you're the financial aid, you're the academic advisor, you're, the head coach, and you're the strength coach. You're every type of coach that you can think of. But that prepared me for the opportunity that I currently have, here at Bethune. And again, without the people at ASA that we were surrounded with, I don't think this opportunity happens as well.
Do you have any evening or morning routines you feel like help you? High stress job. Do you have anything you do every day that you feel like helps you?
None. I just wake up, take the kids to school, right?
That's one for me. That's one.
Yeah.
Like drop the kids off is like that's a big one.
Yeah, that's huge. And the thing too is just having like just a moment of silence, so to speak. My wife's into, meditating and, all that stuff, and putting yourself in a good position to, be mentally focused for any challenge that comes your way. And, we try and do that at night also. It's just putting yourself in a situation to make sure that you're in the right headspace to deal with anything. And what could be an issue for other people, being where I've been, it's like, oh, this is nothing. Like, we're going to solve this issue, and I think that also experience at ASA, where, we didn't have, really a facility. We ended up practicing at the high school, at Hialeah High School, where I coached high school at. And, I'm not worried about, okay, well, I don't have this big fancy facility. Well, hey, pitchers, you're going to have a bullpen, and you're going to have a field to throw, and you're going to have a mound to pitch on, and position guys, we have one batting cage, and like, we're going to be okay. I would push, shopping carts as our ball cart, and that's fine. It's no big deal. So, something that may be big to other people, when it gets presented as, I guess, something wrong,
it really is about
perspective.
It's perspective,
and that's where, again, I attribute the experience out of ASA, to be able to handle some of the things that we go through here, at the university.
What are some other resources you dive into that you feel like help you? Books, podcasts, anything?
Yeah, I mean, books, I can tell you, I can't read a book. For me, I'm more of an audio guy. If I can punch in, something on the podcast, whether it's the ABCA, or I try and look for leadership podcast, or building, team building exercises, just stuff that's not only going to help me, but it's going to be able to allow me to help our guys, grow, as men. So I don't want to be here and say I know it all, because I don't. So like any opportunity, even reading like The Energy Bus, those books, like just audio books, it's perfect for me. Everyone's, learning style is different, but I enjoy the audio, the podcast,
your auditory
especially especially when we're on the road for so much time that we are. If you got a 4, 5, 6 hour, car ride to get to an event, you just pop in a podcast, and, I thoroughly enjoy those.
What are some leadership things or team things that you like doing? You mentioned early on about dealing with the new guys and with your 3 core covenants and not embarrassing, teammates not embarrassing. Like, what are some things that you do with them that you feel like help them?
I think the biggest thing is allowing like the older guys to be able to step into a role of leadership, and we'll bring in, several guys that have been with our program, for a couple of years and just let them know, hey man, like you're going to be the leader, right? It can't always be the coaching staff that's going to get on the guys because, culture is very hard to define, but it's very easy to see. We say that all the time here, right? So, what does it look like? And I actually took this from a podcast that I had, Justin Hare speak, about bringing in the guys and, hey, in 10, 15, years from now, and you're an alumni of this institution, what does a championship team look like? How are they dressed? How are they getting on time? Like, what is their interaction with not only their coaches, their teammates, but also people around the campus and the community? And you just start getting guys to kind of fire in on that, right? And then, well, okay, if this is what you guys want, then this is our standard. Then how are we going to be able to, acquire and meet the standard day in and day out? It can't always be the coaches because we're not always going to be in the locker room. We're not always going to be with you guys. So what is it about this, section that we're going to utilize to get to the standard that we're going to be able to get to? And that's helped. We've had certain guys, pull me, hey coach, man, like this dude was 5 minutes late and we send him home. Well, okay. That's fine. That's great. I'll support that because at the end of the day, we're trying to also be able to allow these guys to express themselves and be who they are, without the worry of, am I doing something wrong? No, I went trial by fire, man. So like, you're going to be okay.
Who nudged you to get in the ABCA?
Man, years ago, one of my high school coaches, a buddy of mine was like, hey, you're going to go to this convention and, with the private sector and it's very hard, right, to get time off. So the first convention that I went to, believe it or not, was actually 2 years ago when it was in Nashville. And my assistant at the time, Jose Carballo, who's at the University of Missouri right now, was just, we're going, no questions asked. I went the year before and I was like, well, okay, I obviously got to let, my wife know. So I planned it out where, we had 2 weeks on the road for winter break and, went to Nashville and just such an awesome experience. I think being able to be in rooms, with certain coaches and talk about certain topics, I think it's great. I think the one thing that I learned is, again, like, you don't have to be caught up in making sure you go to every single talk. That's maybe one piece of advice that I would give somebody. That's one thing. Just kind of pick the topics that you want to go to, and the people that you want to hear speak. And then just the friendships, the relationships, the different people that I knew that I had no idea went to the ABCA, where I see a high school coach or former colleague and, all that. So I try and go, now every year as long as the schedule allows it. But I got to make sure I take care of the family vacation first before I go to the ABCA. So, I'm sure,
I'm proud of you for that, though, the family vacation piece, because that's a big part of it. Because obviously you're away from them for a lot of the year, and it's good that you're doing that.
Yeah, it's huge. Just this about 2 weeks ago, for the 4th of July, we were on the recruiting dead period, and it just so happens that our wedding anniversary is July 3rd. So I know that every July 3rd, our wedding anniversary, we're going to be on a dead period. So, kudos to my wife for picking that day, right? Years ago. But it's great. We were at Anna Maria Island, spent the week out there. And, as much as you're on vacation, you're still working, but I have to still learn how to tone that back, where I'm on vacation with the family and, I got my kids in the beach and I'm taking phone calls with recruits or text messages, and it's a situation where, just tone it back. Like, hey man, enjoy it. So, for the winter,
let me know if
we
you
do
figure
road
that
trips.
out, because I could never figure that part out. If you figure that out, let me know.
It's tough.
I could not figure that part out.
Yeah, it's tough. And that's why it's better in the winter. In the winter, my wife doesn't fly. So we try and do road trips, and we've done road trips from Florida to New York, and we try and stop at every state and just give the kids that experience as well. We've done Texas, Louisiana, New Orleans. We've done all of that. And, I enjoy it. I don't mind the driving. I mean, I drive for work anyways when we have to go to the recruiting events. So, just taking them out there and just taking the time to, be able to spend, quality time with the family is huge. Because again, without the support of, our wives and even, the kids, our children, man, like they understand we're not home. So, it's it's definitely something for them, to be with them for 2 weeks, without a worry in the world about dad's leaving today at 8 a.m. and he won't get back till 10 o'clock at night.
What are some final thoughts before I let you go?
No, I really do think, I thank you for the opportunity, to speak about our program. And like, if there's any newbies that do go to the ABCA convention, just understand you don't have to go to every single topic, right? Because then you get lost in everything. Just pick certain topics that, you definitely want to address or want to get, better at, and take what you can and how can you, apply it to your program. And not everything is going to work, and that's fine. You can go trial by error. But it's not a moment for you to do it when you get back to school in January. Give it some time, and then, implement what you need to in the fall. And again, just appreciate everything that you guys all do. And I appreciate for you having me on, talk a little bit about our program here at Bethune-Cookman in Daytona Beach.
Thanks for your time, Johnny. Have a great fall.
You got it, my man. Thank you. Appreciate it.